exclusively on ESPN Plus. UFC 311, Saturday. You gonna get it! Reigning lightweight champion and the #1 pound-for-pound fighter, Islam Makhachev, defends his title in a rematch against Arman Tsarukyan. And reigning bantamweight champion, Rob Dwalish-Willing, defends his title against undefeated Umar Nurmagomedov. UFC 311, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Today on CityCast Denver, tragedy struck on the 16th Street Mall last weekend with a stabbing spree that left 2 people dead. But the uproar revealed a more complicated dynamic evolving around downtown. Then the mayor vetoed the big needle exchange proposal and announced a long-awaited deal to buy the old Park Hill golf course. In other words, it was a week. And hey, just a heads up, we will not be publishing a new episode on Monday, so we can take some time off for the holiday. Also, this episode features some strong language and discussions of violence. Today is Friday, January 17th. I'm Paul Karolyi, and here's what Denver's talking about. Welcome back to CityCast Denver, the show about the city that is too dang cold. Bree, I've had it.
Well, bad news, Paul.
I know,
You're
it's getting
in Colorado.
worse. Well, that too. It happens every year. I should know
You're
this is
from
coming.
Canada. Isn't it way colder up there?
I grew up... You tell people your family's Canadian, and they think
tell Bree you're Canadian once. Never let it go.
I should be more prepared for it, though. My relatives in Canada, what they would be doing right now, this weekend, is they would be flooding the backyard and ice skating and playing hockey outdoors.
See, taking advantage.
Yeah.
Why don't you go do that at your house that you don't inhabit right now, Paul?
No, I'll be inside next to my space heater.
Sorry, I'm trying to dox you. I don't want to do that. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so it's Friday. We're rounding up the news of the week, and what a week it was. We have so much to talk about. We really have to get into it quickly here. We're in the 5280 Magazine studios. Our host, Bree Davies, is here. Hey, Bree.
Hi.
And we have a really great guest today. You know her.
Returning guest.
A returning guest, yeah, but for the first time on Friday, which is fun.
Yeah.
You know her from her campaign for mayor a couple years ago. She's a criminal justice professor. Welcome back to the show, Lisa Calderón.
So glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
So glad to have you. How are you feeling about the cold this weekend? You ready?
I'm a born and bred Coloradan, so it's just January.
Yeah. Sometimes we even forget our jackets. I don't know how that happens, but I did that recently.
I do. I'm sure we'll see people with shorts and flip-flops
Oh, you know it.
walking from the car to the restaurant or something.
Or shoveling
this weekend.
snow.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, we got a couple of pieces of business before we get to our top story today. Number one, we've been talking about it because we're so excited about it. We're throwing a really cool event called Heyday. It's an indoor fair with urban flair, all your favorite carnival classics with a Denver twist. March 8th, get your tickets now.
I'm excited. Me and our regular guest, Joshua Emerson, will be hosting the grandstand stage. Lots of fun acts. Can't wait to share it with everybody.
Here's what I want to talk about today.
What?
We have a sponsor for this event that's going to have a kiosk, and I cannot wait to see the products they bring because every time I walk past their store in the Cherry Creek Mall, I go in and I look at every single one. Topo Designs.
They are such a quintessential Colorado brand at this point. I think they're awesome.
That's
so great.
Flattering that they want to support this event and
so
be
cool.
a part of this at the very beginning, and I think that's going to be a really fun thing to see, and buy some stuff, hopefully. So get your tickets now at heydaydenver.com. March 8th is the date. It's a family-friendly event. We're going to have tons of great stuff for everybody, the whole family, kids, everybody. Also, other piece of business, we're hiring again. This is not the job I've been talking about the last 2 weeks.
We're continuing to grow.
We are still growing. It's a great place to work. Come join us. So yes, the temporary newsletter job, we're still hiring for this weekend. It's going to close. But now we're looking for a part-time social media manager to come help us out. Someone who knows Instagram, knows TikTok, maybe TikTok.
If TikTok still exists in a week.
Someone who can tell us if TikTok is going to be around.
Red Note, find us on Red Note. Is that what it is?
You're not going to find us on Red Note.
I have no idea.
We're not joining Red Note.
Find us on Friendster. I don't know. MySpace.
Yeah, so the job listings are in the show notes. Let's get to our top story.
Let's do it.
It's the coldest, darkest month of the year. We've been talking about it, and the mayor's big push to revitalize downtown did not need the week that it just had. Last weekend, tragically, 4 people were stabbed on the 16th Street Mall, and 2 died, which is horrible. But then there was this uproar, as of maybe you'd expect, in the news. People were upset. People felt vulnerable. Downtown already has this reputation. So there's a lot of different pieces of this. And then the week, like the way it unfolded was interesting. But just to start with the core of this, these horrible stabbings, Bree, is there anything you want to say about this?
I mean, I'm so sorry to these folks' families. This is such it sucks to be at the center of the news, especially when you're losing somebody you love in such an awful way. I'm just really sorry to these families of these folks that were attacked. It's really scary.
Lisa, what was it like for you watching the news and just thinking about downtown? I mean, I know that you've studied these issues involved, and what do you think about this?
I watched Mayor Johnston's press conference about it. I saw the uproar. I saw it on social media. I read the news articles. And so I wanted to, again, I saw that he put his little podium out there for his press event. And I think within the same sentence of giving condolences to the victims, he said what a vibrant downtown it is. And he used his buzzword vibrant several times in that press conference. And I just thought that was a very callous way to talk about a tragedy where two families are planning funerals unexpectedly and in a way that should never have happened. In fact, the Downtown Denver Partnership gave, and who I'm not an entity I'm not a fan of. I believe that they are part of the shadow government of Denver. But they even gave a much more empathetic response and acknowledgement for the tragedy for the victims' families. So, for Johnston to go out there and just say, hey, this is bad, but it's unusual, and let's get back to business. Downtown is safe. I just thought totally missed the mark.
It reminds me a little, and too, just like the news coverage of it, because I don't want to undermine what happened, but like violence happens here every day in neighborhoods across the city. But it reminded me a little bit of the moment a couple of years ago when there was like a dude on the 16th Street Mall with a PVC pipe.
Yeah, outside the McDonald's.
It had that kind of tenor in the news, like hysterical a little bit. Not that this wasn't terrifying, for sure, absolutely. But like, it's just when these kinds of stories grab hold, it just takes up so much airspace in a way that can make it hard to get down to like the actual issue, which is like, is this an issue with violence specifically in this area? Was this just a person with mental health issues that happened to be in this area at the time? It's hard to really know.
Well, according to 9 News, fortunately, they did do some digging into the actual data on crime here, which I found shockingly difficult to find in the local media, which was so weird. There was so much focus on the suspect, like putting his mugshot everywhere with this smirk. Like, I thought we agreed not to do that with crimes like this, honestly. And I don't know why I saw that guy's face everywhere. But 9 News reported that year over year, the number of violent crimes in Denver's Central Business District and parts of Lower Downtown have gone down. In fact, 2024 saw the lowest number of violent crimes committed since 2020. That's according to Denver police data. So, and the mayor said the same thing at his press conference. He said, generally, the trend is downtown crime is down. Yet the news told this different story. Lisa, why do you think it broke through in that way?
As someone who's taught criminal justice for over 20 years, I do acknowledge that crime is cyclical, right? And I, too, am concerned when we have this kind of panic when you see a tragic, unexpected, horrific incident. And the perception is that that's happening all the time. So I get that. And I'm usually the one to say, let's put it in perspective. Let's look at the data. My critique with the mayor is that there wasn't enough of that balanced approach and that acknowledgement that people are afraid when incidents like this happen. And so let's look at the data. Violent crime is down. And we also had an individual who, from what we learned, because they gave their record at the press conference, who had been in and out of the system. And so where I automatically went is there were many touches with this person in the system over, I think, a decade. Where did that system fail? You don't just go on a spree of stabbing people up and down 16th Street Mall. And so they didn't talk anything about potential mental health issues or homelessness issues. And that's not an excuse.
Right.
But we need to understand how this individual allegedly got to this place, since he's still a suspect. He hasn't been convicted. And also the fact of splashing the photos of someone who has been arrested. I think that practice has gone away more in print publications, but I think the media, in terms of broadcast media, still adhere to that a lot of the time.
I just thought that was so weird to see his face so much. And
It's been a while since we have seen that quite a bit.
And
You're
like
right.
he was giving this attitude too. It was like, why are we? It felt like
Also,
glorifying
we
this
make
guy.
a lot of assumptions about people when we just look at a photograph of them in a single moment.
Right, that's
you know
true.
what I mean?
I'm
Like
seeing
we
a
don't
smirk,
know what's
but
going
who
on.
knows?
Right. I mean, is this young man schizophrenic? I don't know. Like I've never had a mugshot. I don't know what I would look like in that photo either. And it's really hard when we take one image and put all of this on that one image.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It doesn't distract from the fact that this was a violent crime. It's just like Lisa's saying, like there's a lot behind this story before we got to this point for this person.
Well, you gave some kudos to the Downtown Denver Partnership, Lisa. I want to talk about that a little bit more because I kind of have to plus that up. I talked to Courtney Garrett, the CEO, and if you're not familiar with this group, what they do is they represent business interests. So businesses downtown, they pay in a little bit of money to support this group, and because downtown is where a lot of business happens, it's a pretty powerful group politically. It's an important economic sector. The whole area is really important for the city.
They also have influence on policy and legislation.
Oh, tons,
for sure.
tons. I mean, we'll talk about some of that, but
Yeah.
what Courtney Garrett said, she talked a lot about mental health support and people that can, social services, non-security, like help that they could be maybe doing a little bit more of. She also said that their longtime board members, some of these people who have been like own property, run businesses for generations downtown, they had a board meeting on Wednesday. They were supposed to talk about like Ballerina, the National Western Center, all these big projects. And all they talked about was this, because all of these people are very concerned about the perception of crime downtown. And that's the story this week. What do you think, Bree? Do you think this is a turning point for downtown? I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time, but this was different.
I don't know. I mean, it kind of goes back to this conversation that we were having off mic a couple days ago. This big PR push we saw in the last couple of years that the 16th Street Mall is going to be safe. It's going to be very safe. We're going to increase the safety of it with these yellow vests or increase security and we've talked about this. We're down here every week. We have yet to see a yellow vest. But also, I don't know what that would have done in this situation. I don't imagine the folks. It reminds me of like the clean and safe programs. You might have seen these folks on the 16th Street Mall. They're usually wearing purple. They're cleaning. They're picking up. They're part of the programs that bids pay for, business improvement districts pay for. But in the scheme of things, is that increasing the safety of it? I don't know. And I felt like, I just remember, I can see it in my mind, this press conference. I feel like it might have been with Hancock. It might have even been before Johnston when we had the partnership up there saying, we're going to increase security. We're going to make it safer. And this would maybe be contrary to that and say, I don't know, what have you guys been doing?
The one yellow vest I have seen since they announced that last year was on Johnston this week at his press conference.
I don't know if that was a good look.
I thought that was curious.
Because we haven't seen them, this supposed safety team that was going to be the superheroes of the mall or whatever.
That was another thing Courtney Garrett told me. She told me because it was a Downtown Denver Partnership a project with the mayor's office. And she was like, that's really more the mayor's thing. You got to ask him about it. But then I pressed her and she was like, it was actually more about House 1000 and the encampment resolutions and not so much about being friendly faces downtown to provide support and maybe deterrent for bad behavior you don't want to see down there, which I thought it was when they announced it. I thought they talked a lot about that.
It also reminds me of, Lisa, you probably remember the Guardian Angels. They were all over Colfax in the late 90s. They were along the 16th Street Mall. These were folks that were not police officers. They were community members, and their job was kind of just to hang out and talk to people, find out what was going on. A Guardian Angel, I've told the story on this show before. A Guardian Angel helped me at 7-Eleven when a dude was trying to be inappropriate with me, and our Guardian Angel intervened. And I actually have a photo of myself on the 60th Street Mall with the Guardian Angels that I should dig up.
Yeah, you should.
I don't want to say community policing is the solution, but maybe there was something that could have been done in all of this talk and these vests and the safety that would have at least, I don't know if prevented this, but created a different environment on the 16th Street Mall. Maybe that's part of it. A lot of us have said this. It feels desolate. It feels empty. It doesn't feel welcoming. It doesn't feel like I'm supposed to hang out there. And then It doesn't necessarily make it conducive to better activities than whatever this was.
Well, I've been saying for years and years and years, I mean, the concept of community policing has been co-opted.
Totally.
And we, I do remember, the Colfax community-based patrols. We have always had that in our communities and our communities of color and underrepresented communities because we have not had access to power. We have not had access to resources, and we have to keep each other safe. We know what we need to do to keep each other safe. I'm part of Reimagining Policing and Public Safety Task Force, where we came up with 112 recommendations that include more of community efficacy, and which is community self-empowerment. We are the experts in knowing what keeps us safe. So when we see these yellow vests and those types of cheesy initiatives, it really does feel gimmicky. It feels like an attempt to garner press and to say, yeah, we are doing something and we are doing it with gusto, and then you don't hear anything else about it. And then you have this tragedy happening. I never thought I would give those kudos to the Downtown Denver Partnership, but it seems like their message is evolving. And I think part of that is political. They are understanding that they can't just say, sweep unhoused people and people we don't want to see from our living room. That was another term that Johnson repeatedly used. 16th Street Mall is the living room of Denver, whatever that means. But at least their messaging is evolving, whereas Johnston and the city of Denver seems to be regressing. Back to the tough on crime, we won't tolerate this. Well, it happened. So there was some kind of, there was some kind of breakdown there. That 3 stabbings happened within 1 hour. And then another stabbing happened the following day, all on the 16th Street Mall. And Mayor Johnson has called for more police, but he can't get them hired and recruited. His appointees fired a Black woman, Niecy Murray, the head of the Civil Service Commission, when she was like, I'm not going to lower standards just because you can meet your goals. And so he returns to this rhetoric as we're going to put more police down there. Well, downtown has more police anywhere, but it's not stopping it. So why are we not asking the harder questions? There needs to be a fatality review of this incident, of this individual, of the services and systems that he was involved with, to learn, to understand. But simply calling for more cops on 16th Street Mall, that's not working.
Well, we have to talk about this moment at the press conference because this was the thing that just went wild this week. I know you both have seen it. I've seen it a bunch of times. It kind of rocked my socks so the mayor, what he was doing downtown, at this press conference we've been talking about, he said we're going to increase police presence downtown. He said the crime rates are actually going down, and maybe this is a turning point for how the city feels about the mayor. Maybe it's just one guy, but this happened.
Yeah, I saw you at the parade, you fucking coward, mayor. This is your fault! Crime-loving Democrats are burning this city down! That fucking asshole you think you are not. The city's burning! People are being good.
Crime-loving Democrats are burning the city down?
Quite a line.
I don't even understand what that means.
I mean, this is a man walking past behind the press conference who sees this happening.
Okay.
What does he mean? I think I know what he means. He's talking about, what do you think he means, Lisa?
Well, it has, I think now, 67,000 likes and over almost 5,000 comments. And yeah, it's gone viral. Okay, on the one hand, ridiculous to blame it all on Democrats. I get it. Yeah, but on the other hand, I also think that it indicates the frustration a lot of Denver residents and even Americans have with the Democratic Party saying everything is fine when they feel like their homes are on fire, in some cases literally, right? Like in California. It ties into national politics and the presidential election, where the Democrats just completely missed the pain that people were enduring by telling us everything is fine and good. So we saw it on the national level with presidential politics. I think that with Johnston's ill-advised press conference with his little podium out there outside to, again, tell everybody everything is good and fine without acknowledging the pain that people are having is insensitive and a little hilarious in terms of that interruption.
I don't know if I agree with you that it was. I think he probably could have done a better job of acknowledging the hurt and the pain, but I think that he's right. You gotta give it up. You gotta admit that he's right about these trends, and even downtown trends are looking good. Like, I think this guy represents a small and maybe growing segment of the internet and Denverites who are frustrated and angry and don't agree with his policies, but like. The office leasing data is better. The crime data is better. Like, I don't think it's all yellow vests. I think he's doing things that seem to be working generally.
Well, and that's not what I'm disagreeing with. If that's your message, give it from the city and county building. Give it with your charts and graphs. Give a serious press conference to show us and educate the public about why this is such a rare event. Don't move your podium to downtown and say, promote your capitalist principles, come down here and shop and eat. To me, that's not the big message. The big message is we're taking it seriously. We extend our condolences to the family, appropriate time given to that. And here's why this is not a crime spike. I'm all about data and showing that, but do it in a serious manner. Not in the way that was really a photo op.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he paid for it. This did not look good for the mayor this week.
No, it really
didn't. And I mean, he didn't exactly on the internet these days, you got to have a comeback. You got to be good in the moment. These are the moments that define people in our age. And he just stood there and he kind of took it. Bree, what do you think? Was this the moment that the city is this a turning point for Mayor Johnston?
I don't know. It's hard to tell because that guy screaming is a lot like the Do Better Denver Instagram account.
I couldn't help but think about them as well.
I live in a different Denver than those people do because I don't experience what they're experiencing, this anger over crime, which I would hazard to guess that the crime data in my neighborhood might even be worse than downtown. But I don't know what that's like because I don't experience. I mean, that's not the neighborhood I experience every day. It's not the city I experience every day. And then there's this overlap where we throw the unhoused problem in with the crime problem when those are not exactly the same thing. And that man just felt like the hysterical embodiment of the internet chatter I see on every post about the city, but whether it's from the city of Denver or some auxiliary office about, hey, we opened a new shelter today. And then you just look at the comments and it's just like, go to hell, Democrats. This city sucks. Da-da-da-da-da. And it's just like, that's every single, there's just a rash of those comments on everything the city tries to do. And I'm not defending Mayor Johnston in this moment at this press conference. I'm just saying, I'm talking more about that screaming guy.
Yeah.
Is like a minority of Denverites I generally cannot identify with.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I believe we do need something in the middle.
Sure.
Where it's between come downtown and shop and eat versus, inflammatory rantings. And instead acknowledge that there have been breakdowns in Denver's social safety net. It's gotten worse since COVID. We have less money. A lot of the money has been pumped into Johnston's House 1000 and then All in Denver initiative. And we're feeling the repercussions. Those city budgets are being drained before an agency could be like, okay, let me help you manage. Let me help you with food. Let me help you with maybe a stipend for a motel voucher. All of that has been sucked dry. We are over budget. There is not a lot to show for it in terms of, I think Johnston, gave himself a on his scorecard for meeting his goals. We're going to be giving him something else because he hasn't met them. We need to have a spotlight on the fact that we are really in dire straits when it comes to direct services. I am a direct service provider. We serve people with trauma and reentry services, and the money is just so tight. We have been trying to work on a contract with the city of Denver for over a year. The money is there.
Well, that's the story for everybody right now, though. I think the city is going through its own budget crunch. Sales tax revenues went down this year. Like that's why it's so hard to fund all these programs that there's a lot of people that want to see these things. It's just the money's not there. Maybe you question his priorities. More on this later in the show. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to talk about the Park Hill Golf Course and probably disagree a little bit.
This episode is brought to you by Denver Health. Did you know that Denver Health is home to one of the most comprehensive pediatric care systems in Denver? From bumps, bruises, and fevers to more serious conditions, Denver Health's pediatric urgent care is there for families when their little ones need immediate attention. But sometimes a child's care requires more than an urgent visit. That's where Denver Health's inpatient pediatric unit comes in. As part of a level 1 trauma hospital, this specialized unit is equipped to handle complex conditions, ensuring children receive expert, quality care from board-certified pediatricians that you can trust. With providers trained to treat kids from newborns to teens, families can trust Denver Health's pediatric team to deliver comprehensive, compassionate care when it matters most. To schedule a pediatric appointment, call 720-928-2127. That's 720-928-2127.
Will, talk to me.
ABC Tuesday.
They took his daughter. She's coming home alive.
Will Trent, the series critics are calling powerful must-see TV, continues to thrill.
Shouldn't we strategize before we go in there?
If we screw up this case, a cop killer walks free.
With the riveting conclusion to a 2-part season premiere.
GBI!
Help me!
Get down!
Will Trent, all new Tuesday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
All right, we're back. It was a big week for the mayor. Couple of days after this press conference we've been talking about on the 16th Street Mall, he was in Park Hill making an announcement the city has been waiting for ever since voters turned down Westside Investment Partners' proposal to build a mixed-use development on the site of the defunct Park Hill Golf Course. It's a long story. You probably know it as well as we do. We've been talking about it for years. It's a fascinating story. But Lisa, is this the end of the story?
It's never the end of the story.
No, I don't think
when it
so
comes
either.
to Park Hill Golf Course. My goodness, it's been going on for so long. I was one of the organizers with Save Open Space Denver. It was very contentious. I was the chief of staff for Councilwoman Candy Sedabaca at that time. And we were really pushing for Denver to honor its easement. We were aligned with Mayor Webb, who, promoted that, created it, got it passed, and then we have Westside, who kind of came into the story like a villain, and
Villain
divided.
to some, hero to others.
Well, so divided the community, because I think that the way that community was. I just think that it was an unnecessary divisiveness that was promoted. But yes, they were a hero to Yimbys. Are you a Yimby, Paul?
No, I don't know. I'm nothing. I'm nothing. People call me whatever you want, but I don't claim any of these titles.
But to me, and I'm not only an open space proponent, but we also see that building everywhere on everything doesn't give us affordability. And so I think that there could have been a much more productive way that the city could have brought community together to have these conversations. And it was very clear from the beginning that the city was in collusion with Westside to have a particular outcome. And I think that just rubbed so many people the wrong way. And ultimately the voters decided.
Yeah, they did.
Multiple times.
And then that was,
spoke.
the press conference was like, to me, this was a victory lap for the Save Open Spaces people. The tone of
the
this
shade
thing.
that Webb was throwing left and right was, it wasn't even shade. It was straight on. He called out the CEO and founder of Westside Investment Partners.
He called out.
He said he's a good guy to have a beer with. But then maybe don't do business with him or something to that effect. I can't remember.
He called out former councilman Robin Kniech and said that she, at one point, said that a new generation of black leaders needed to step forward, and that implying perhaps that he himself needed to step back. I checked in with her, by the way. She has no comment, but doesn't remember these comments for the record. I thought that was wild.
It was an interesting moment. I think we're still in the same struggle we were in before West Side Development Partners got here, which is what is actually going to happen. When is it going to happen? How is it going to be funded? I mean, if we haven't said it yet, this press conference was the mayor announcing that this will become the 4th largest park in the city, which is, again, wonderful in theory. But I told you this, Paul, I grew up in your neighborhood. I grew up next to Potenza Park. Potenza Park had a sign in it that said Potenza Park. It was an open dirt
just
field.
A dump, yeah.
It was a dump for most of my life.
It's a beautiful park.
It's a gorgeous park now, but I'm just saying time frame wise, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm waiting and wondering is they did promise. I know Joel and Clark got up and said, hey, okay, we're at least going to take the fences down. We're going to make sure it's safe for people, and we're going to make sure the trees are irrigated so we don't lose any more trees, which is a whole other story of the city and its hatred for trees. But and they said by summertime that at least will be available, because we know from our newsletter editor, Adrian Gonzalez, who used to live right over here, he said, I can't even walk my dog over there anymore.
I know, it's been so bleak.
Hopefully that is the case, is that folks can actually start utilizing it again. But when it becomes the dream park we know we want, the green space with the bathrooms and the, whatever, tennis courts, playgrounds, picnic tables, whatever.
Disc golf course, they keep mentioning this week, which was like...
When, how? I don't know about that. Maybe I'm too cynical. But.
Lisa, I want your take on the deal that Johnston negotiated here with West Side, because that's how they took control of this land to hopefully turn it into this park that I think everyone can agree on is going to be a great benefit, even if it might not be the thing you wanted most. They traded West Side 145 acres of land in Adams County, which is south of the airport. I looked on Google Maps, looked like nothing. What do you think about the deal and like how this happened, the negotiations?
Well, first, I thought it was pretty funny that West Side stole Mayor Johnston's thunder, because it was Mayor Johnston's was like, big news is coming soon. And then the West Side guy was like, we did a land swap.
That's true. He did say that on Monday.
But I they're still getting... That land out there is so valuable anyway. I mean, they're still getting a sweetheart deal. It's not the deal that they wanted, that they envisioned. But one way or another, they're going to make money. I'm not worried about West Side.
They paid $24 million for this golf course 5 years ago.
Well,
that doesn't seem like that.
Is this land out by the airport worth $24 million now?
Well, eventually it will be worth more. I mean, the land out at the airport.
Federico Pena probably wants you to think so. That's why he built the airport all the way out there.
And that they wouldn't do something if it wasn't in their best interest anyway. Yeah. So, and I also think putting all of that fencing around, I mean, that was like a visible symbol of a temper tantrum. Like,
it was so spiteful. It was delicious. Part of me really enjoyed it from them. Just like, you voted against us 3 times. Fine, you don't get to have this.
It's the embodiment of the power of the people that own real estate and how it impacts the people around that real estate every day. Andy Klein doesn't live over there. He doesn't have to look at that fence, but the people that live in this neighborhood have to stare at this thing, which happens all over neighborhoods. You see it all over when they tear down a house and then they don't end up building anything, and then you live next door to a pit. Like, it felt kind of like that. And I mean, the spitefulness, I guess, but also you made a deal with a different administration. And that seemed like maybe you got screwed over there, and that was your bad. I mean, that wasn't the voters' fault.
When you play the politics game, sometimes you lose.
Yeah, I imagine that there was something going on with the Hancock administration when they made that deal and said, oh, yeah, easement, schmeasement. Don't worry about that. Just buy this. It's fine. It's fine. You guys will be fine. And then they tried to do it, and then the voters said, hey, wait, we know this thing exists to keep this an open space, and we are going to vote to say that that's what it should be.
And remember, Johnston was for development of the space.
Yes, which Webb called out.
Good.
In the press conference, he's like, I know you were on the other side of this during your campaign. And then he gave him credit for...
I think to Johnston's credit, he always said he would honor the will of the voters, and I think he did with this deal. So just worth noting. But Lisa, what were you going to say?
Well, Webb gave, I think, a really good quote, and he said, "It's not about winning; it's about what's right." And it's nice when you can have what's right and win at the same time, which is what we did.
He did. It was a victory speech for him. He was like up there thanking people. I got so many quotes from him. He was a quote machine this week. I mean, if I didn't have another great win, he would have been my win of the week. But I want to give here's one he gave we should talk about. Something Wellington Webb said about this was he was talking about the affordability issue and how, people disagree about what would bring affordability. Was it, increasing the supply of housing by building it on this land or by not allowing development and keeping some people would say keeping the homes in this neighborhood. Anyway, he said, we want it to be affordable for Denver, not new people who moved here from Aurora or wherever. This is a quote from former Mayor Webb.
I have to say I was confused by that because if I know anything, it's that folks are moving to Aurora because they can't afford Denver anymore.
I'm with you there. But what do you think about this point he's making about that it will be affordable for Denver, for Denverites who are already here? This so rankled me. I mean, I moved here 10 years ago.
It felt like a dog whistle for old transplants.
It worked.
I mean, I'm not excusing it or anything. I'm just saying that's what it felt like to me. It was like, oh, you're not from this neighborhood, then good luck. This is not for you. I don't know. But it is going to be a park, which is for everyone. You don't have to show your Denver ID.
Yeah, but to live there, you got to buy one of those houses or already own them. I would say this is going to make those homes much more unaffordable for new people who don't already own them.
And that's something that was brought up in this press conference that I did not get a good answer to. I feel like the mayor was asked that directly, the mayor wasn't asked that. He stated this. He said, we know that parks are, and I'm paraphrasing, we know that building new parks is one way to spur gentrification. But what we're going to do, which is like the paradox that sucks for people in these neighborhoods, because I think about this when I voted. I voted against the GO bond to build the rec center in my own neighborhood. It's not because I didn't want a rec center in my own neighborhood. It was because I was worried you build that rec center and then real estate agents say, come to Westwood. There's a brand new rec center. So you put people in this paradox where they need something so badly. We want more park space. We need more park space, but we don't have control over what that does to the rest of the surrounding area. And how we stem the tide of gentrification is something we have clearly not figured out. And the mayor kind of was just like, but we're going to make sure that there's affordability happening no matter what. Not on this spot, but we're going to make sure we get first right of refusal on new land that's being sold. And we're going to make sure that we look at studies to get a good grocery store and all these things that they say in planning all the time, but doesn't necessarily mean that's the reality.
Yeah, I think he knows, like we all know, that was just a pack of beans. It's just words. Like there's no real plan there. The plan was to build housing, to bring affordability. That's what he wanted to do. But Lisa, tell us what you think about the gentrification and the nativism.
Well, I grew up here. I'm third generation. I understand, I think, what Mayor Webb was trying to say, but that also isn't necessarily the current reality in terms of people really, really struggling to be and live in Denver. And whether that's those of us who have been here for generations through our family or those who moved here seeking, better opportunities, it is just incredibly, everybody knows, unaffordable. I think we need to make a list of Johnston's idioms or the things that he repeatedly says, like, we know this. And then whenever he says that, we know, I want to look it up. So one of the things he said was, we know when you have a park, gentrification happens. Well, it's a lot more complicated than that.
Right.
We know that, there's lots of different things that spark gentrification. And one of those, the biggest ones is, public policy. And how our government leaders think about spaces and value spaces or devalue spaces. When there's increased police presence, oftentimes that predates gentrification happening. So it's just an oversimplification that bothers me because what's the alternative? We don't get parks.
Right. That's what I'm saying is there isn't another option. Then it's okay, either you do this and there's what's the option for people? You should be able to have a park and be able to afford to live near that park. But I agree with you, Lisa, in that he's oversimplifying something that is it's been a conundrum here in Denver and many cities for decades. How do we figure this out? And it's not as simple as we're just going to make sure there's something affordable there. I wish he would have just said, I understand this is a really big struggle. We haven't given it up yet.
Well, and
You can't promise.
he's done not a lot and virtually nothing around gentrification. Another organization I'm part of is the Latino United Neighborhood Association, which was an organization that I co-founded with Latino leaders when we were deciding who to endorse between Kelly Brough and Mike Johnston. And one of our indicators, we had around 79 of them, was around gentrification. And we grade Johnston on this quarterly. Well, in the last year, he promised to meet with us 4 times a year. He met with us twice and tried to send proxies for the last 2 times. And one of the big indicators on our scorecard is gentrification. That needle hasn't moved. So to have a press conference and to say Parks causes gentrification when he hasn't really lifted a finger, 1, to meet with our group, fulfill a promise, 2, and 3, to have actual policies that reduce or slow down or protect against the forces of gentrification, it just it feels hypocritical and disingenuous. But I also think what both Webb and Johnston were trying to do was, rhetorically at least, is to say, I claim the space, I'm from here, I have connections here. And in looking at a Denverite article when Johnston was one of the 2 finalists after the runoff, Johnston talked about he's returning to his hood in Park Hill, right? This millionaire from Vail claiming Park Hill as his hood, I think goes to him continuing to appropriate Black neighborhoods and Black culture for his political advantage. And it just always comes off as dumb.
For the record, Wellington Webb, born in Chicago, Illinois.
I was going to say, he talked about it in the press conference.
Not
He talked
from
about how far he
Not
had to
from
go to
here.
get to a park when he lived in Chicago as a kid.
Yeah. I do think it's surprising that the mayor used the word gentrify at all. I feel like he's such a supply guy, and he's definitely more like sympathetic to that way of thinking about like housing dynamics and real estate than the like gentrification model that I know that you care a lot about. Like, I think I would have expected him to talk more about increasing supply, increasing building as a way of bringing down prices, and maybe talking about displacement. Like, I feel like that's what I would have expected from the mayor more here. And
It didn't feel very thought out in that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't really his thing. Like, everyone was calling Wellington Webb mayor at this press conference. It was so not Johnston's thing, even though he was like announcing a big victory and negotiating this deal. And like, I think it is a win for him, but it's like, it's clearly the Save Open Space activists.
To be seen.
Huge victory.
Too.
Well, it was a win for the community that pushed for it, that had a vision. Woody and Georgia Garnsey being one of those folks who are often dismissed by city council members and Parks and Rec department. It's just really, this is a victory that belonged to the community, that belonged to Webb, and great that Johnston put his name on the deal. Okay.
Yeah, interesting. One more Webb quote. There's so many we could talk about. I encourage you to watch the press conference.
It was pretty
He's a very entertaining guy. He's talking about his wife. I want to praise Wilma for coming up with the great yard signs. I didn't know this is where the idea came from, but we've all seen the signs. Grass over concrete. Brilliant slogan. SOS means save our souls and same old shit. It was always our strategy that people would see through the greed. We won 3 times. Our opponents were about as consistent as the Washington Generals playing the Harlem Globetrotters.
I love the fighting words over a park. It's pretty incredible. But also, like, this is a man stepping back into the spotlight as someone who's a former mayor getting to claim a victory over something that, you know, this used to be his job.
Yeah.
So,
well, he was
I get it.
Very much ready. And he was also dismissed and in some ways disrespected as a former mayor by Mayor Hancock. I mean, he was brushed aside and, you know, like he was a bygone era. And so I think that this is a well-deserved victory lap.
Mm-hmm. I know some people are going to be talking about the name of this park. I know that they're going to be engaging the community. I don't think we need a process. I think it's obvious. This is the Wellington and Wilma Webb Park.
Well,
is there another? Could it be anything else?
I mean, this would be a community question to me.
Well, I'm putting it out there. That's what I think it should be.
in the neighborhood?
www.park.
HTTP.
Paul, don't stir stuff up for Park
that's
Hill,
my
folks.
favorite thing. That's my favorite thing to do, Lisa. All right, we want to hear what you think too. We've got some good voicemails about this. I know this is a topic that people are really passionate about, so I'm putting a call out to our Park Hill listeners specifically because we want to know what's happening next. Keep us in the know. When you walk past the park, we want to know what's going on, what's new, what are they doing there? Because you know best. There's no detail too small. Leave us a voicemail, send us a text at the same old shit hotline. It's open. It's 720-500-5418. Again, it's 720-500-5418. One more break, and then wins and fails.
Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The new year brings new health goals and wealth goals. Protecting your identity is an important step. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, LifeLock's restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Resolve to make identity health and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
All right, we're back. It's time for Wins and Fails, aka Rocky Mountain Highs and Lows. Each of us brought a recent local something we think is a win for Denver this week and something we think is a fail. I got some great ones.
Go for it, Paul.
Do you want to start, Lisa? A fail, actually?
Sure. A big fail that I don't think got enough press was that the Denver Fire Department union held a vote of no confidence for the fire chief. Whoa. And as a result of the basically padding his hours,
I remember
going
that.
to funerals or public events and billing the city for overtime to tens of thousands of dollars that have happened for years and years. And it wasn't just him, it was also his command staff. And as a result, there was this big investigation. They brought in this, high profile investigator and who basically said, yeah, they did this.
Wow.
And it was an offense that other firefighters would get disciplined for or fired for. And essentially because Chief Fulton promised to pay the money back, Johnston was like, I'm good with that.
Whoa.
And I think it just, one, sends a message to the rank and file that there are separate rules for you than for the mayor's appointees. And two, I think it's a signal that, Johnston, who has the holdovers from the Hancock administration, they all know they can do no wrong. They can retaliate against folks. They can, take funds, public funds, and give themselves extra pay, violate rules, and nothing's going to happen to them. I think we've established that now and a year and a half into Johnston's administration. Nothing they can do that they would be held accountable for at this point.
Well, I don't know. I think that's our job to increase the scrutiny. Thank you for sharing that with us, Lisa.
Paul, you want to do your fail?
Yes. Oh, I got a great one. The Uber lawsuit this week. Did you all see this? Uber. They filed a lawsuit this week in Colorado to block our state's new gig driver transparency laws that are set to go into effect February 1st. So these laws are meant to do things like show riders how much of their fare is going to go to the driver and how much is going to go to the company. Increased transparency. Maybe people would say, hey, maybe I should tip a little bit more to help, maybe the driver gets a little bit more money. That's what the whole idea is. Transparency.
Or maybe I just want to know what I'm paying for.
Or whatever. Transparency.
That's a pretty normal consumer request.
Transparency. I was thinking about this. This is one of those things that I just always love. I just love more information. The truth is really important to me. Transparency really matters to me. So when I was reading this lawsuit that Uber filed, I actually read it and it made me so mad because it is so disingenuous, because they're saying we don't want these transparency laws. And one of their arguments is because the law says that the information that the riders would see doesn't provide enough context.
What does that mean?
They're saying, well, the riders aren't going to know how much we have to pay in overhead for insurance.
Oh, please. It's like the information's already out there. We know that Uber drivers are already kind of getting screwed. You drive your own automobile for a company, and this is saying is letting folks know how much of your money is going to those drivers, and they don't like that.
Yeah.
Because then they have to show what they're doing back there.
I think their motives are very clear. But the fact that their argument is like, the law doesn't require us to show the context, the proper context. It's like Uber. Go ahead. Like, do it. Show the proper context. Give me the Costco receipt of information the next day, and I'll make my choice. Give me all the information. You control this.
They don't want to show.
This has been years in the planning, though. So I guess I'm not surprised because I was recruited by rideshare entities to. Their strategy was to recruit those of us who had some community capital to make this an issue of drivers of color, giving them more autonomy by reducing, regulation. And I don't know whose big idea was to think that they could talk to me and think I would go along with it.
Uber came to you for help?
I'm not naming any names of any companies.
One of these companies.
That is hilarious.
But I'm saying
really funny.
So I'm not surprised that they're trying yet another ridiculous attempt to undermine workers' rights by making it seem plausible that people can have too much information. Like, if that's what their argument is, it's pretty weak.
It is so weak. I don't know the law. I don't know the whole argument. Maybe it'll go their way. I don't know. But the fact that they're saying that the law forces them to, quote, cherry pick figures that restrict context, and they have full control over how much information people get and could offer people as much context, it was just like, come on, Uber.
So
that's my fail this week. Bree, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I was livid about this. Earlier this week, City Council passed a change to needle exchange programs that allowed there to not be a cap on them. Don't worry, there's not going to be hundreds of them all of a sudden. There's currently 3. But the removal of this cap on where they could be in the city was to allow basically, the Harm Reduction Action Center, in some sense, is trying to buy a new building. And because of these caps on regulations on where their needle exchanges can be in the city, there's no real estate that's available to them. So that's a big part of it. But the other part was, this is an archaic and outdated regulation that other cities our size don't even have. And it passed City Council. 8-5. And then the mayor vetoed it. And I cannot, for the life of me, understand what he is doing. Why? I guess I'm going to share a little bit from there was a press release from the 3 sponsors on City Council, Council members Parody, Gonzalez Gutierrez, and Councilwoman Gilmore. They said no other city among the largest 250 American cities and no other jurisdiction in Colorado imposes a distance restriction from schools and daycares. But Denver does. And in fact, White House model policy explicitly denounces the use of these district restrictions. So the mayor is going against information out there that says that this is not a problem anywhere else. We're not going to all of a sudden see a proliferation of needle exchanges, which, by the way, this is not a place. I talked about this earlier on the week on Tuesday. It's not a place to go do drugs. It's a place to get safe supplies so that you don't die, so that you don't get HIV or hepatitis or skin infections. This is kind of some of the most basic harm reduction when it comes to drug use. And the mayor said no. And I cannot figure it out.
Well, I think he's pandering to that inflammatory side of...
This feels like an easy...
Yeah, because, 30 years of the same restrictions and not looking at the evidence. I think they pulled a report through the public safety department that tried to make the case that crime was going up. And then you had doctors like Dr. Josh Barocas, who blew that out of the water and said, y'all didn't even use, statistically valid ways of analyzing this problem. And in fact, crime goes down when you do have safe exchange sites. You reduce the transmission of diseases. You give people an opportunity to access resources, get health care, mental health care, et cetera. So the evidence is there. And yet, I think Johnston, on the one hand, has his roads to recovery, where he, in part, is compelling people go to jail or go to treatment. It seems consistent with that feeling. On the other hand, totally disregarding the evidence that's showing that there's a benefit to having these sites. And also, here was my pet peeve, Kevin Flynn's comments on city council. On the one hand, he starts opening the door to the safe injection site conversation, which that's not what this is about. This is needle exchange. It's not safe injection sites. But it goes to that.
Well, he said it could set a precedent. He said it could lead to it next.
He says that, and he also talks about him being termed out and retiring. This is why I'm also for term limits. You shouldn't be thinking about your legacy on your way out the door. And that's not what the conversation was about anyway. So I think it fans the flames of people's fears.
Same. It's a very easy.
And the media does it when they're showing these piles of needles in their coverage. I get it. It's about needle exchange, but fundamentally it's about saving lives and it's about people.
I have to agree too, at least I just want to say it really bugged me that publications I deeply respect kept using these photos of piles and piles of needles as if that's what you see when you go to a needle exchange. I would guarantee you don't even know where the needle exchanges are in this city if you aren't using them. I would guess that you maybe don't even know where they are. They don't have advertisements with needles everywhere. They don't have people strung out around them. They actually, like you said, the statistics say there's less crime around these spaces. And I know from talking to Lisa at Harm Reduction Action Center, they are out there every day picking up just regular trash. So you wouldn't even, they're good neighbors beyond just making sure that needles aren't in your city. And it just, the hysteria, it's one of those it's an easy target. I think you're right. It was easy to, you know what, let's sign off. Let's give these Do Better Denver types a win and say, you're right.
Yes.
We don't have to guess at his intentions. He wrote a letter explaining himself.
He did.
I have to offer his perspective here because I think he made a couple of points, and we can talk about them a little bit. So one of them was he said the number of needle exchange, because he generally, from his letter, he agrees with you too about these things being effective and good for like reducing crime. I think he's there on the principles. Where he disagrees is he said the number of needle exchange programs meets the current need. And based on a survey of 1,000 drug users in the city's 2023 Denver Syringe Access Program Needs Assessment, which is the report that came out a few months ago that recommended this exact change, they found that the average perceived ease of access of each harm reduction resource was easy to access on average, based on these 1,000 users.
His own public health department put out a very detailed report. Well, I can quote it from the two.
Go for it.
And they talk about how these sites actually do all of the things we just talked about. Mm-hmm. He is going against his own report. So he is maybe cherry picking one or two things from this over 100-page report that actually in its conclusion says we do support more safe exchange sites. And, it makes the public safer from a public health perspective.
Mm-hmm. So the other point he made was there's no reason to eliminate common sense setbacks. And he's talking about the schools and the 1,000-foot buffer zone. There's no shortage of sites available to providers without eliminating the reasonable setback from schools that is currently in law.
There is good reason because there's no evidence that suggests setbacks work or are needed. And Denver is an outlier in maintaining those setbacks. They are not necessary. And it also continues to invisibilize the problem that, this is something that, dirty people do in back alleys and not people who are really struggling from day to day. I was actually so surprisingly impressed with Paul Cashman's speech on city council, where he talks about basically these people, quote unquote, are us. Right? They're in our families. They're in our communities. We need to stop stigmatizing them. And these buffers basically continue to do that. He also brought up the fact that, hey, you have Bonnie Bray ice cream with lines of families standing for their ice cream next to a liquor store, right? there's addiction there, but there's
gosh.
nobody talking about, hey, we got to shut down the liquor stores. We don't want to see it. So to me, this plays into promoting a negative stigma, which goes against Johnston's own Roads to Recovery initiatives.
Yeah, and just inciting fear. And I said it before, addiction thrives in isolation. Allowing folks more places to access information means that more people will live. Also, we have 78 statistical neighborhoods in this city. You're telling me 3 needle exchange sites are serving us? I don't think so.
The thing I wanted to ask him about, if we do get to talk to him about this in the next couple of weeks, we're supposed to sit down with him. His comment about common sense setbacks, because that's the thing he didn't clarify. What does he mean by common sense setbacks?
Especially if this is something that other cities have repealed a long time ago. And one of the things that frustrates me about Denver is we don't want to be the forefront. We don't want to be the forerunner for harm reduction. We don't want to be the first. I remember who was it? John Walsh we talked to. I asked him about this and he said, well, someone else can try safe injection sites, just not us. Well, guess what? Someone has tried this change. It works. Let us do it. Then let us be the follower.
For the record, the Denver City Council, the city of Denver has approved these. What we're waiting for is the state to change their law. The state is the one that currently bans this.
We've approved safe injection sites, but the state is not.
Yeah. So let's move on to wins. Let's talk about good stuff. I got a great win. Can I start?
Go for it, Paul.
All right. I was upset about nativism earlier, and I wanted to say the reason why that's so upsetting is because of stories like this from a great reporter who's currently writing for Westward. We need to have back on the show soon, Helen Shu. She turned me onto the story this week of a group of Chinese women, immigrant women, families who have started serving a, quote, true old-style Chinese breakfast dish called, and I'm sorry, Helen, for not pronouncing this very well, yutai, on Saturdays and Sundays at a restaurant called Chilgogi Korean Barbecue in Greenwood Village. This is just like one of their husbands was like, come in, start offering this, like, because one of them was just cooking it at home, and then on Facebook they were all like, "Oh my God, you're making this! I have to have that. You got to share this with my family. I want to try it." So now the husband is like, "Do it on Saturdays and Sundays. People will come." And it's this dish that Helen was like, "When I'm in Shanghai, I have a hard time finding this. This is such a traditional, like, rare thing."
What is it?
It's a deep fried fritter. It's like a long golden brown deep fried strip of like wheat flour dough, long as your forearm, according to Helen, and served with bowls of soy milk and crispy rice cake. I've never heard of this before. I thought it was fascinating.
Sounds delicious.
And I think it is so cool. And it made me so excited to live here, knowing that these people could come here and bring this tradition to our community and feel comfortable enough to share it and enrich the place where we live. And it just made me so excited. I was so glad to see this, and I cannot wait to try it.
Sounds good.
That's my win. I loved this. I loved it.
Anything that adds to our cuisine, awesome. I love it.
Lisa, do you want to give us your win?
I'm going to stick with the parks theme, and it's not anything new, but it really is a shout out to Denver Parks and Rec regarding our mountain parks. They are gorgeous. I'm an avid hiker, and I think a lot of people tend not to go hiking because of the snow in the winter. But, get a pair of, crampons, ice spikes, and that just
you can get
pull
yak
onto
tracks
it. Yak
pull
tracks,
on your,
right? Just
your
pull on your boots. It's so beautiful in the mountains, and you don't even have to go far. Genesee Park, where they have the bison conservation park. And I think what people don't know sometimes is they go to that first exit on Genesee where you can't really see the bison so good. But if you go to the next one, I'm coming from Denver, go to the next one for Chief Hosa exit, I think it is. And then you drive around, and then where there's the big fence for the bison, they're right there oftentimes.
Cool.
And their babies, what are they called? Calves? I'm not sure. But they're just there, and they are just majestic. If you have not seen the bison herd that Denver preserved with the native communities here, they're cared for. It's just a wonderful view to see. And, it's only, 35 minutes from Denver.
A nice winter hike recommendation. That is a good reminder. My family goes to Frisco, and we do the Rainbow Lake hike. And when the sun's out, it's perfect. It's actually not that cold.
It is such a special thing about our city that we have these bison herds, and we've preserved this.
So cool.
I love it about Denver.
We should share that episode.
We will.
Talked to Scott Gilmore about that.
In the show notes. Really interesting story. Here's the trail. I'm going to give you the trail. This is what you Google. It's right by Genesee Park. I did this last year with the microspikes. Loved it. Chavez and Beaver Brook Trail Loop. You get the sense of like wilderness and feeling alone in the wild, but like you said, Lisa, it's like 30 minutes away. It's like, I love it.
You can do it in
Actually, be careful on Beaver Brook Loop. You can end up on a cliff. I did.
Really?
So you're on the one side, go on the other side of that, Paul.
Okay. That's a good tip. Listeners, let us know what you think. Let us know if you run into that cliff. Bree, what's your win?
My friend Jane Lee, copy editor at Westward, is retiring after 33 years at the paper. Janie's been editing the entirety of the newspaper every single week and every single day since they obviously started publishing online. And she edited my work when I worked there. Any writer knows an editor just makes you sound better, just makes you read better. And she also just happens to be a really good friend of mine. And something that I think is so cool about Janie is she loves Denver so much, and she reads the paper every day. So she literally knows everything that's going on. She goes to every neighborhood festival. She goes to every local bands. Like, she'll text me and say, "Oh, I saw your friend was playing. I went down to whatever random place." She'll go and watch a show. Like, she goes to art openings. And she's just she's quiet and in the background, but she shows up so hard for Denver. And I'm so happy for her. She gets to retire. She gets to spend time with her grandson, Sebastian, and she gets to just chill. So congratulations, Janie. 33 years at a newspaper, that's a long time.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine who hasn't read an article with horrible copy editing errors lately, because no one else can afford to have someone like Jane Lee.
Seriously, I watch her every Monday. She's editing the final copy before it goes to the printer. And like, she just catches so much stuff. It's like the wayward comma or like a paragraph seeming weird or just helping you rearrange a sentence to make it sound better. And a good copy editor means your reader doesn't even notice that stuff. And that's how good she is. So congratulations.
The end of an era, though. Like, we don't have a copy editor.
I know.
Sorry.
I've learned a lot from Janie, but I'll never be Jane Lee. So congratulations, Jane.
Well, here we are at the end of the show. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, this is great.
Thanks for having me. This is so much fun.
You got to come back and do it again.
I absolutely will.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were Olivia Jewel Love, Lizzie Goldsmith, and me, Paul Karolyi. Peyton Garcia writes our morning newsletter, Hey Denver. Bree Davies is our host. Our music is by Los Mocochetes, with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. If you haven't already, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at CityCast Denver, and tell Wellington and Wilma Webb about us the next time you see them. If you love the show, come see us in person at Heyday, an indoor fair with urban flair on Saturday, March 8th. Get your tickets now at heydaydenver.com. And come work with us. We're hiring. The 2 job listings I talked about earlier are in the show notes. Check them out. You can sign up for our daily newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. See you on Tuesday. Oh, boy.
Do we have it
I don't
somewhere?
have TikTok downloaded. Damn it.
You know I've got it.
I'm going to lose my chance this weekend, too.
Lisa has TikTok open.
Thank you, Lisa.
Especially this clip.